Hello, everybody. This is Rogers Harrison along with Brian Kruperick, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Deep Dive Podcast. Brian, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Rogers?
I'm doing well. Today on the Sports Deep Dive Podcast, we're going to have a little fun, Brian. Instead of, doing a research on a particular topic, person, league, we're just going to throw out a fun little topic, and we'll get your thoughts on it, and then people listening can comment on their various platforms and see what they think as well.
Sounds good.
We're going to take a look at college sports, and we're going to take a look at men's basketball and college football. Usually, if you follow a school or university, they are good in one of those two sports. They're good in football, but may not be good in basketball. They may be good in basketball, but they may not be good in football. So we're going to kind of look at some programs, and we're going to see whether they're good in both sports.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify for all the listeners out there, we're not here to crown a winner. We're
not like a top 10 or anything.
Yeah,
like
we're
that.
just here to look at some of these programs and and have fun with this topic. Just a little fun.
Sounds good.
Not as serious as we normally are. So I took a look at some programs, and I know, Brian, you did as well. Now, what I looked at, because, these schools have been playing sports for 100 years or whatever,
Right.
and so and they've all had different coaches. It's all been different eras. Facilities and athletes and stadiums. I mean, the list goes on. So what I did, I don't know how you approached it. I just looked at the past 12 years.
Okay.
Because I felt like that, gave us kind of a snapshot of these programs. And some of these programs that I looked like have been in different conferences. Some have had different coaches as well. Now, I did look at the 2024 football season, but I did not look at the 2024-2025 basketball season, because it's still ongoing. And, that's not fair to say, hey, look, they're, winning their conference. Well, they could take a deep dive, so to speak, and, not make the tournament or whatever. It's ongoing. So would you like to go first, or should I?
Well, I thought maybe it doesn't matter to me. We can go either way. We could even just go back and forth if we
All
want
right,
to.
back and forth. All right. So one of the first ones that I looked at was Louisville. I looked at Louisville. Now, the 12-year snapshot that I talked about had Louisville in their last year of the American, and then its current run in the ACC. So, historical Louisville has been considered a basketball school. They're in there in Kentucky with their rival, the Kentucky Wildcats, and it's just that the state of Kentucky is just crazy about basketball.
Yeah.
But Louisville has made some strides when it's come to football.
Yeah.
Recently,
Made some noise.
A couple years ago, they went to the ACC football title game, and they even made some noise, as you say, when they were in the American.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of what I found out. Like I said, the snapshot that I used was their last year in the American plus their current year in the ACC. And so from Louisville football from 2012 to 2024, won 99 games and lost 62. So that's a winning percentage of about 62%, 0.615.
Yeah.
So 62%, that's not bad, but they didn't have any championships in there, whether it be they had division championships, that's how they got to the ACC title game, but they didn't have a conference champion. Well, they didn't have any ACC conference championships, they didn't have any national championships as well. So then I looked at basketball within that same time period, 2012 to 2024. They had 152 wins, but 130 losses. And so that winning percentage was about 54%. So Louisville, who has a basketball reputation, was actually better in football during that little snapshot than they were in basketball.
Yeah.
So that's a look at Louisville, and I'll tell you the truth. I didn't look at the basketball blue bloods. I didn't look at their football numbers like Kansas and Kentucky and North Carolina and Duke. Just because, yes, Kentucky football has been.
Well, yeah, I was going to talk about Kentucky. They were one of the ones that I looked at.
All right. Then you can talk about Kentucky football. But as far as Kansas and North Carolina and Duke, yes, Duke now has Manny Diaz in football, and he's made some noise with them.
Still kinds of remains to be seen with Manny at Duke.
Yes,
right?
but I mean they're still a basketball school, and their football program hasn't been up to,
dismal.
Hasn't been up to par.
Right.
I mean, yes, you've been dismal. And then saying in North Carolina hired Bill Belichick as their football coach, as you know, starting next season.
Still remains to be seen.
And every year they always North Carolina's gonna challenge Clemson for the ACC football, but they haven't.
Yeah.
Maybe once in all those years that people predicted them. So yeah, they're still a basket. And Kansas is the same way. Kansas, again, has been making stride, but in that state, Kansas State is the better football program out of the two. But anyway, so let's go with who you wanted to look at.
Well, I was going to talk about Kentucky first. I've got several here, but I was doing some research, and so I kind of went with some traditional football schools, some that also had decent basketball programs, and then some basketball programs that maybe I wanted to see, did they? And I was actually surprised by a few. So Kentucky was one of them. We all know Kentucky's pedigree on the basketball court, right? That's what they're known for.
They're a college basketball blue blood,
right? Exactly. But while they have not made it to the CFP and they haven't won an SEC championship in football, they have been to a bowl game every year since 2016.
Okay.
And that's not too shabby for Kentucky football. Stoops has been, a very good catalyst for their football program and has grown the program. And they've been consistently making it to the bowl games. So, and, it takes a winning season to do that. So I thought, that was kind of what made my case for them to sort of be included. And, like we could talk about their basketball stuff for the next 20 years, all the stuff they've done there. But they have been successful going to Elite Eights and making it to Final Fours over the last 10 years as well. So, yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting. Do you want me to go with another one and then you go, or you want to take your next one?
I'll take my next one.
All right.
So if we're looking at football powers and then comparing them to basketball, I went with Clemson. Clemson's next on my list.
What? Brian Higgins, if you're listening, hell just froze over.
Okay, I don't know what that means. But anyway, all right, so Clemson football, same snapshot from 2012 to 2024, 151 wins and 28 losses for their football program.
Yeah.
Winning percentage of 84%.
Yeah.
And, they've had a few national titles, conference titles, national title within that time frame, right? Clemson basketball, I want to remind you, if you don't know, Clemson basketball last year made it to the Elite Eight. And they are currently, and I know this isn't included in the snapshot, but they're currently on top. Well, they're not the top, but they are in the top level of the ACC basketball this year, their men's. Clemson basketball from 2012 to 2024 won 227 games and 162 losses with a winning percentage of 58%. So far, out of the two that I've talked to, Louisville and now Clemson is tops on that list with an 84% winning percentage in football and a 58 winning percentage in basketball. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, and it shows that Clemson is, or at least attempting to plug the money that they get more than in just football. They're also plugging in other sports as well. So that's the Clemson snapshot. What else you got?
So here's one that really surprised me, but I guess it's just because I don't pay attention to their conference or anything like that. But when I was looking at stuff, I saw that Fox Sports did a really good article on this in 2023, but they did it more in a top 10 competitive type deal. And one of the people that made their list was San Diego State Aztecs. And they have 11 combined conference championships between basketball and football. Mm-hmm. And they have at least 1 year that they made it to both the combined, they made it to the Final Four, I think it was, 1 year.
Now, I want to stop you and I want to remind viewers right now that San Diego State right now is in the Mountain West, but in 2026 they will be moving to the PAC.
Right.
And so I just wanted to remind people
that's a
about
good
that.
call out. So I just thought that was an interesting one that maybe people wouldn't realize or think about. That was, one that's not your perennial, your blue bloods either on football or basketball, but they've been very consistent over the last 10 years on both sides of the ball.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go with another football powerhouse. I'm going to go with Florida State.
Okay.
Now, Florida State,
again, I'm surprised.
Past year did not have a very good.
No, their football season was terrible.
Their football season was terrible, but they're one of those football brands, right?
Yep.
When you think college football, Florida State, for a long while was in that discussion. Florida State, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, they've been in that discussion. So I wanted to take a look at them because their basketball has also been on the rise. Leonard Hamilton has been the coach of that program for many years and has put Florida State basketball on the map, in my opinion. But I don't know if you know this today, but he announced that he will retire at the end of the season.
Oh no, I didn't hear that today.
Yeah, so Leonard Hamilton will be going on. But let's take a look at Florida State football from 2012 to 2024. Florida State football won 110 games and lost 56, with a winning percentage of 66%. In that same time period, 2012 to 2024, FSU basketball won 242 games, lost 154 games, winning percentage of 61%. So Now, not as impressive as Clemson's football winning percentage, but this is out of the schools that I've discussed so far, this one is the closest in mirroring each other. 66% for football, 61% for men's basketball. So I think Florida State has to be in that discussion of we've got a good football and we've got good basketball. Now, right now, like you pointed out, they didn't have a very good football season this past year.
But we're talking about a period of time.
Right.
And they have been a perennial football powerhouse.
Right. And I mean, like the saying goes, for Florida State football, it's nowhere but up from this point, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't see them only winning 2 games like they did last year. I see them, competing more.
Yeah.
Maybe not going to the ACC championship game, but at least being more competitive than they were.
Yeah.
All right, so who's up for you?
So I'm going to go to my Big Ten.
Okay.
And I'm going to start. I have 3 Big Ten schools on my list, and one of them will really surprise you. But I'm going to start with the Michigan State Spartans.
Ooh, your rival.
Yeah. They have done exceedingly well on the hard court.
Yes, Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo is the bomb. And the Spartans have been very, very successful basketball-wise over the last couple of decades, really. But really the last decade for sure. But they've also, at times, in the past decade, not the last 2 years for sure, but prior to that, they were very competitive football-wise as well. Not making a CFP, but competing and getting close to Big Ten championships and that type of stuff. And so they have had a lot of success. They've been to 8 combined conference championships between basketball and football in the last 10, 12 years. So not too shabby. And they've made it, I think, to the Final Four 3 times in that time span. So
Here's one thing you may not know, but after one of their basketball championships, they took that floor and they moved it and put it into their arena.
Really? No,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So, all right, so every year the NCAA gets a new floor for the Final Four.
Yeah.
Both the men's and the women's. And so, I mean, who knows what they were going to do with that? Probably throw it away.
Chuck it, right.
Yeah. And so Michigan State says, well, we just want a championship on that floor.
We'd
like to have it. And so, of course they, took off all the Final Four logos and put their own logo on there and painted it green and everything. But yeah,
That's really cool.
that's
That's a great little tidbit.
Yeah.
Awesome.
See, now you know why you listen to the Sports Deep Dive.
Exactly,
podcast.
because you don't get this information everywhere.
That's right.
All right, who you got next, Rogers?
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Tennessee.
Okay, yeah.
Tennessee.
Tennessee's men's basketball has been pretty hot over the last 4 or 5 years.
They've been hot. They did really well under when they had Bruce Pearl, but because of violations, they had to let him go. They now have Rick Barnes as their coach of the men's basketball team. And Rick Barnes, I don't know if you remember, but he's been at other places. He's won at Texas. He's won at Clemson.
Yeah, he's done well at pretty much everywhere he's went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's thinking about maybe one day he might retire soon. And so I wonder what Tennessee would do then.
He's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've talked about all those other stops, but he's been successful at Tennessee as well.
Yep. Tennessee football, I think, is one of those other brands that you know about.
Especially living in the Southeast, Tennessee is perennial and had some major stars come from there.
Tennessee football, I don't know if our listeners remember, but Peyton Manning
Yep.
played Tennessee football. And
Well, Albert Hainsworth. Trying to think of some other ones, but some pretty big people, and even in the NFL,
yes, have
come
played.
from Tennessee.
So, yes. Tennessee football from 2012 to 2024 won 92 games. And they lost 70 games, which I found really surprising that that it was so close as far, I mean, you know, there were 22 games over 500, but it's still close, you know, not like Florida State won 110, Clemson won 151. Louisville in that period even won 99 games. So, I just find that surprising. They lost 70 games, 92 and 70 in that time span, and that gave them a winning percentage of 57%. So again, I was a little surprised, and I know that Tennessee had some down years in that snapshot, but you know, through the history of them playing football, they have been successful.
Yeah.
Tennessee basketball from 2012 to 2024. Are you ready for this? 276 wins, 147 losses, and that gives you a winning percentage of 65%. So actually, their basketball team has done better than their football team, and so which is surprising because Tennessee is known as a football school.
Yeah.
But
They had some years in there while Bruce Pearl was there, before Heupel got there, that they were struggling. So I could see where the basketball team may have, you know, taken over when we're looking at this period in time.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
Yep. Who you got?
All right, so I'm going to go SEC as well, and everybody knows Alabama has been the king of college football.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Alabama. Alabama.
I'm not
I mean,
familiar with them.
it's hard to deny their football prowess under Nick Saban.
Yes.
And but then they've also done really well on the basketball court over the last bit.
They have.
And so they've won the SEC regular season. They've been tournament champions for the SEC. They've made it to, I believe, is it Sweet 16? Yeah, so they've done really well.
What I think about, I mean, when people talk about the Iron Bowl, I mean the rivalry between Alabama and Auburn.
Right, which is a fierce rival.
It is a fierce rival, but Alabama doesn't want to lose to Auburn, or doesn't want Auburn to one up them in anything.
Yeah, I mean it could be rowing; they don't care.
Yeah, and when Auburn got Bruce Pearl and started winning with Bruce Pearl, Alabama was like, oh, we can't let this happen, and that's when they started paying attention to their basketball, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, so it's like we can be more than just a football school,
right? We can't allow this to happen.
Yes, and so I just find that interesting. You know, they were rolling along. It's like, yeah. Basketball season's just between, you know.
Right, it's how we get through the winter.
Yeah, but when Bruce Pearl started, you know, winning, and then they were like, oh well, I guess we need to put some resources in that.
Yeah.
So I just found that interesting. You want to go another before I go mine?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
how many more are we going to do, Rogers?
I've got one more, and you haven't talked about your favorite school yet.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go one more, and then I'll let you go, and then I'll wrap it up with my favorite school.
Okay.
All right. So one that is now in my conference, but everything we got to talk about except for last year, or this year's football season, they were in a different conference, and that was the Oregon Ducks.
Yes.
And Oregon has been very successful in their own football conference prior, right? Before getting to the Big Ten,
yes.
the Pac. And they have also been a force on the basketball court, making several tournament appearances and doing very well in the pack.
Okay. Have they done well?
Yeah. Here.
But they haven't done well. They've done well in the pack tournament, but not.
But not in the SEC. Not in the NCAA.
Right.
Yeah, they've, like a lot of people, haven't really made it deep in there, but they've done well to get there. They have 10 combined conference championships between football and basketball, and they've made both to the CFP and the Final Four in the past decade.
Yeah, we know about their CFP
Right.
stats.
Yeah. But, I mean, making it to the Final Four is no thing to sweat. Right? It's a good thing.
Yep.
So, there's that one, and then, yeah, I'll save the best for last. And when I say the best, meaning my favorite, not the actual best. Because they're not when we're talking about this topic.
Yes. All right. So then I looked at SMU football and SMU basketball. Now you're probably, why did you look at SMU? Who cares? Well, here's why I looked at SMU. Because the snapshot that I talked about, 2012 to 2024, would be their last year of Conference USA, their entire run in the American Athletic Conference, and their first year in the ACC for football.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to gauge about where that would put them. Now, and in 2024, they went to the ACC Conference Championship, which is pretty good for a first-year school in a new conference. It's like, oh, well, So 2012 to 2024, SMU football won 86 games, but they lost 76 games, and that's only a winning percentage of 53%. All right. SMU basketball, again, this year is not included because it's still ongoing, but this year in basketball, they are doing very well in their new conference, which I argue is it's a basketball conference. And
very strong.
Very strong, and for
Yeah.
them to be doing well says a lot about them. 2012 to 2024, they won 213 games in basketball. They lost 128 games, winning percentage of 63%. So they're doing a little better in basketball, but they're no slouches when it comes to football. And from what we saw of them in 2024, I think that they're going to get better.
It looks like they're going to be competitive.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that nasty word, and I'm sorry I've got to say it, or the nasty words, and I'm sorry I've got to say them. Transfer portal can wreck or can ruin or make any program great again.
Yep.
And so we'll see how they do with the team they coming back in 2025 for football.
Yeah. All right, so obviously I can't do a conversation about football and basketball without talking about my Michigan Wolverines.
Right.
And so, I will say this, admittedly, there's Big Ten schools that out there that if you look at the stats have stronger stats for the combined, to be better on both. But Michigan has had a very strong showing both football and basketball over the past decade. And so winning Big Ten titles on both sides of the ball and making it to a title game against Villanova and not winning. Villanova beat them. But in basketball, and then winning the national championship in 23 for football.
I remember the Fat Five
Yep.
in basketball for Michigan, and also remember Chris Webber not knowing how many timeouts Michigan basketball had. So
Thanks for the rib there.
Yeah, there you go. Some of the schools we didn't get a chance to talk about. One of them was Auburn. Auburn basketball. Right now, Auburn basketball is number one in the nation.
Yeah.
And since Bruce Pearl got there, they have been doing really well. But since Bruce Pearl has gotten there, their football program has kind of taken a step back.
It's a dumpster fire. Is really what it is.
And so that's why Auburn was not mentioned today. You've got some very good historical programs like at Vanderbilt. Used to be pretty good in football, not good in football lately, although looks like they did turn the corner in 2024. And historically their basketball has been pretty good.
Yeah. Ohio State, as much as I'd like to admit, is another one that has been very strong on both sides.
But they're getting there in basketball. I wouldn't say that they're a basketball school yet.
No, but they've had some success of late,
Yeah.
and then their football team has been good off and on for the last decade.
South Carolina, a former ACC member, now in the SEC.
Yeah.
They've had very good basketball programs lately in the SEC, going to a few NITs and winning those. Their women's program is very strong, winning a few national championships. And their football success is it's coming. It's getting better.
Well, they had some strong years when the old
Yeah.
ball coach was there.
But that's why they weren't in this conversation as well. You mentioned, the West Coast, UCLA, always a good, strong basketball school. Maybe not so much when it comes to the gridiron. Arizona could be in that same boat. Very strong basketball school, but we haven't seen the results as far as on the football field.
Yeah, and the same thing like with an Indiana or even a Kansas
Yeah.
type schools that have got that, and yeah.
So that's it. Little fun discussion in this episode of Sports Deep Dive. Feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments about which school you think has a good football program as well as a good basketball program, men's basketball as well. Feel free to criticize the schools that we looked at, both the ones I looked at as well as Brian. And Brian, before we wrap it up, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Random Things with BK. Yeah, you can reach me in all those places.
And I am on Blue Sky under the moniker 318 North. That's me. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sports Deep Dive podcast. For Brian Koperick, this is Roger Saracen saying so long, everyone.